Go ahead and get started here, and I'm going to do this to Facebook. So give me 1 second here. And we're live streaming to Facebook. Let's see. Day 3. Okay. I'm loading this up, and then we'll get started. Day 3. Sharing your group. And then go to my group. Again, I need an assistant, right, to help me do this so that I look like I'm much more organized. The truth is I'm pretty organized, but I'm not a technical genius. So here we go. All right. So I think we should be going live. Let me see here. Yep. We've gone live on Facebook. Welcome everybody to day 3. Day 3 of Autism Parenting 101. My name is Kyle Jetzel. Welcome everybody. I'm happy to see you again here today. I've got some people back. This is so fantastic. You guys are all showing up, and I've been seeing your homework. So fantastic to watch you guys do that homework and to read some of the things you're learning, some of the things you're going to apply. It really does help me, by the way, when you fill out those homework things, it kind of helps me get in your mindset. So I'll know what kind of things you need me to touch on the next day. So it helps me, but it also, I end up doing it right before. A lot of times I'll read up on your comments right before the next day, and I end up changing up my presentation because I want to touch on the things that you guys need me to touch on. So sometimes that becomes an issue. So I'm going to share my screen. Welcome to Autism Parenting 101 5-day training. This is day 3. And so I'm so glad you're here today. The day 3 goal is when today is done, you'll know why most strategies don't work for you and how to fix that. This is something that was very interesting for me when I learned it. Again, I'm going from personal experience. This isn't really about you. This is more about the mistakes I made and the struggles I had trying to figure some of this stuff out. Plus, you'll learn a strategy that can change your life if you'll apply it today. I'm going to cover a very effective strategy. Hundreds of families now have used this strategy and got success, and it's based on meltdowns. And it's so powerful because it can change really the dynamics of how you do things. And you'll get some insight into why your kids are doing what they're doing and how to help them change their patterns. We talked a little bit about this yesterday in the Zoom Q&A. Kids do what works. We talked about that. And when things work, they do it. So when they figure stuff out, they do it. And when you make it stop working, they try other things, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that today. So let's get right into this. The agenda for day, welcome to day 3. We'll cover that. Then a quick review of yesterday and Monday. We'll talk about why most strategies don't work long-term and kind of how sometimes we tend to cause problems for ourselves as parents. Then we'll talk about the strategy winning every meltdown. We'll talk about how kids are like velociraptors. This is something my wife taught me. It's pretty interesting, and things to do today. So let's get started. Day 3, welcome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for doing your homework. Rita, Sarah, Christy, Jill, Andrea, Sharon, Josie. There's more, but those are just a few of you guys. Thank you so much for doing your homework. Like I said, it helps me to customize the presentation so that I know kind of what you guys are facing. And based on your answer, sometimes it helps lead me in the direction I need to go. Again, though, if you see a misprint on my presentation or something, it's probably because I just did it and I haven't had time to go back and fix it up. Also, I want to do a quick shout out to Andrea, who sent me a strategy. She actually took that formula, the cost formula, challenge, objective, strategy, tactics. She wrote out the challenge, she wrote out the objective, the strategy name. And I'm not going to announce what that was, but I really like the name, Andrea, because it's fun. It was a funny name, and she wrote out some tactics, some very specific things she was going to do every time. And that is really what it's about, right? So once we do that and the event happens again, the challenge happens, we don't have to get frustrated or overwhelmed or discouraged. We can just start with our tactics. We can start into those tactics. So great job, Andrea, for doing that. You're the first one. I've done this presentation a few times. You might be the first one ever that's done a strategy and given it back to me that next day. And that's a pretty powerful thing. And I want to challenge all you guys to do that. Even if you don't send it back to me, go ahead and start with the strategy. Start with a challenge, write the objective, write the strategy name and the tactics, and just do one. I don't care what it is. And remember, you can adjust it, right? It's not set in stone, but it's going to get you active and thinking about how can I manage these challenges better and in a spirit of love as I go through this process, okay? So quick review. On Monday, we talked about bad beliefs, and we talked about how sometimes that can hold us back. And we talked about how on Tuesday, we talked about the cost framework. We just covered that. Challenge, objective, strategy, tactics, and how that can help us. Instead of just hope and prayer and faith, we can create a plan for these challenges. I got to tell you, when my wife passed away next month, it'll be 2 years. We were married for 30 years. And it's tough. I'm just going to be flat out honest with you. It's tough. But one of the things that we did when my wife passed away was I knew that we weren't the first one that it had happened to. I also knew it could ruin our family. It could cause so much pain and suffering for my kids and for me that it just devastated us. And I wasn't willing to have that happen. So I dug into one of my old strategies. It's actually the one my wife created, and reorganized that strategy into a new strategy for my family. And I called my family together, and we all sat down, every single one of my kids. I've got 6 kids, and 2 of my sons are married. So there was 8 of us plus me. And we went through this strategy step by step. And I said, listen, this is not going to be easy. It can destroy our family, or it can bring us closer together. I said, I would like, as a father, for this tragedy to bring us closer together. Here's the strategy I'm going to follow for coping with this, for managing this, for thriving through this tragedy. And I would like you to join me if you'd like to. And I gave them each a copy of it, and they loved it. And frankly, I believe it has saved us. And it's something my wife had put together for herself for another specific instance. And we just customized it for that specific situation. So that framework can not only be used for challenges with our kid, but for challenges with individuals, other people. It really can be used for any challenge we face. If you find yourself frustrated or angry or discouraged, that's a challenge. Grab that worksheet, write out how you're feeling in the challenge part, write out what you want to do, your objective long-term, and start writing tactics, and then come up with a name for it, the strategy. And you will find if you have a plan, it makes life so much easier because you don't have to just struggle and be hit with it. Now, one of the things that happened to me after my wife passed away is every time, there were so many things that reminded me of her that it was brutal for the first couple of months. I remember my kids asked me, we need to go to Costco. And I said, okay. So we went over to Costco. For those of you in the South, it's like Sam's Club. It's just a big warehouse membership. We walked into Costco, and my kids ran off in different directions, kind of like they do. And I realized I had never stepped inside of a Costco without my wife. And it destroyed me. It was like a kick in the gut, and it was just so painful. And I was able to, I had to disappear from my own kids for a few minutes to compose myself. But when I got home, you know what I said? I said, you know what? That's a challenge. And I don't want to fall apart every time I go into Costco. I need to create a worksheet. And I took out the cost worksheet, and I said, the challenge is when new things I face for the first time without her, I've got to be prepared, right? That was my objective, and the strategy and the tactics. So this thing the cost worksheet can work for so many things in your life, so many problems, challenges, frustrations, discouragement, all those kind of things it can work for, right? So I want you to remember that and use that frequently. I've got a book full of them. I've got a 3-ring binder downstairs, but this is my most active that I use on a consistent basis, okay? Like I still use it, okay? We're going to talk about that today. So let's talk about why most strategies don't work long time. And this is part 2 of, if you remember, we talked about Alex Honnold, the free solo climber that climbs mountains with no ropes. He has 3 things he does. Number 1 is get trained. That's the cost formula, right? Have a plan. Number 2, make one good decision. He doesn't look to the top of the mountain. He looks the very next step, okay? We're going to talk about that today. One good decision and how to make one good decision at a time. Because if you look way down the road, it can be devastating. We need to make one good decision at a time and stay in the moment, okay? So yesterday we talked about the Ricky whisper strategy. You probably remember that. And some strategies are easy to remember when they happen, right? We happen to be at church. Ricky screams out. It's easy for me to remember the whisper strategy. Some strategies are not so easy to remember, right? And so you need to figure out a way to internalize them with these worksheets. The first step in every strategy should be, right? Write it up on your cost worksheet, okay? Write it up on your cost worksheet. Now, here's what's interesting is something I learned a few years back. I used to work for a guy. I used to work for a small company, and I had direct access to the owner on a consistent basis. And he wanted me to come to him whenever there were issues that I wasn't sure how to manage, so he could teach me and mentor me on how to do those things, right? So I'll never forget one time I walked into his office and I said, hey, I've got this issue with one of our customers and here's what's happening. And, you know, if I do this, he used to say, bring me the problems and solutions, and we'll talk about the different options for solutions and we'll pick the right one, right? Or the best one at the moment. There's never a right one. There's a best one, and then you can get better at it, right? And so I said, but, you know, I know if we do this, he's going to do this. And if we do this, he's going to do this. And he said to me, you know, that's really pessimistic attitude you have towards this customer. And I said, hey, I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. I know the guy. I've worked with him a long time. I know how he does things. That's realism. It's not pessimism. And he said something to me in that moment. I'll never forget. He said, you know what? That's what pessimists call themselves. They call themselves realists. Now, that hurt me. And if it hurts you, that's not the point. The point is, I didn't like that. I didn't like being called a pessimist. I didn't want to be a pessimist. I wanted to be an optimist. I still think we need to keep realism in mind, but I also wanted to be optimistic and look forward to the future and have hope and joy, right? And so I was so unhappy about it. I ran over to the bookstore, Barnes and Noble, and I grabbed a book. I can't remember the name of it. It's How to Be an Optimist, basically. And it was written, I want to say the 30s and 40s by one of these old authors, right? And I read the book. And within a couple of days, I'd read the book and I thought, now I'm an optimist, right? And I followed along and I was, you know, reading and I was serious about it. And a couple of weeks later, I found myself back in my boss's office again, talking about a different client. And he said, there you go, being pessimistic again. Well, I was really not happy at this point because I'd read the book, right? And I thought, wait a minute, I read the book. How am I still a pessimist? So what I did was I thought, you know what? I know what I did. I read the book, but I didn't internalize it. So I went back to the book and I found there was 10 lessons in this book. And I broke each lesson into 1 week and I made myself a worksheet, a cost worksheet. I didn't call it a cost worksheet back then. It was something different. But I made myself a worksheet and I said, I'm going to focus on these 3 or 4 components all week long. Week 1, I did that for lesson 1 in the book. Week 2, I wrote up lesson 2, a cost worksheet. I didn't call it a cost worksheet. It was just a worksheet of things to do. And I printed it off and I had it in my office. I had it at home. I had one in my car. I had these stupid worksheets everywhere because I really wanted to internalize it. And week 3, I wrote up a new worksheet for week 3 for the tactics I wanted to do and everything. And I followed those. Week 4, I did the same thing and I started doing it for 10 weeks. Well, after week 4, I walked back into my boss's office and we were talking one day and he said, you know what? You've changed. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you're not pessimistic about it. I can see you focusing on the good. He said, it's really making me happy. What did you do? And I realized in that moment that it's not enough for us to write up these worksheets, read a book, say, I can do that. We need to write it up. And then we need to focus on that for a period of time, whether it be a week or a month, however long, and take these worksheets when you write them up, print them off, stick one in your bathroom, stick one in your bedroom, stick one in your car, stick one at work, right? Make sure you internalize that information because when you internalize that information, you can apply it when the time is right. So here's my binder. Here's the one that's I use more frequently. Like I said, I've got a 3-ring binder full of stuff down there that's personal, but these are all my autism strategies. We're going to talk about winning every meltdown today. I've got this one we're going to cover tomorrow. I got reframe your past, nobody deserves, joy and give, hot pop up, and you can see that bigger than kids. What you can even see, I got yellow paper because I ran out of regular paper. Strategy after strategy for my own son, right? And again, when my wife passed away, I'm not the kind of guy that just is going to sit back and take life, right? I have been in the past, but my son taught me I couldn't do that. Okay. Faith and hope is and prayer is not enough. I wanted a plan that could almost guarantee my success, right? I didn't want to hope I had success. You know, the idea that I would spend all these years working and end up with a dysfunctional family did not make me happy. And I knew it was a possibility unless I created a plan. At least if I have a plan, you know, things can still happen, but at least if I have a plan, I know I'm doing my very best. I'm feeling like I'm the best man I can be and the best parent I can be for these kids, right? And like I said, when my wife passed away and I set my family down and we looked at this worksheet, they were in. And it was beautiful to see and to watch my family not only survive the passing of my wife, but thrive and know that they're making her proud and they're achieving and excelling and loving, right? And being kind and they're the model. My kids, I can't believe it sometimes how strong they are. It's not easy losing your mom. How strong they are. And I know it's because they have a plan and they work that plan, right? And they've internalized those things. And so that's what I'm telling you. That's why a lot of strategies don't work. We try them for a few days, or we think we're trying them, or we know them in the back of our minds, and we haven't written them up. We haven't internalized them. And that's really important for us to do, okay? So I want to jump ahead. I want to cover this first, and then we're going to go back to the strategy, okay? This cost formula and creating strategies, you can do it for anything. Getting kids to eat, self-harm, oppositional defiance disorder. My son, biting, kicking, screaming, arguing, pressing buttons, worrying too much. That was my wife. She would lay in bed at night, unable to sleep because of worry, and it would exhaust her, and she couldn't be at her best for her kids. She came to me one time and she said, you know what I realized? And I said, what's that? She said, when my problems become more important to me than my love for my kids, I'm in trouble. And I said, I understand, but it's not so easy to not get bogged down in your problems. But she said, I have a strategy. I have tactics. I wrote up a cost formula and she applied it. And that is the one that we use. Now, tomorrow, we are going to talk about how to be at your best when they're at their worst and how not to freak out when everything goes wrong. Okay. So I want you to know it's not just me that's using this cost formula, right? I've worked with a lot of families. I'm going to read to you some emails I've gotten from individuals. Okay. I'm just going to read some of these. This is from Lauren. Here's what she said. If anyone is wondering if they can do this, because Lord knows I made so many excuses for why this wouldn't work for me, you can. I've got my daughter on the spectrum who also has cerebral palsy and my almost 17-month-old. I am a stay-at-home mom and my husband works long hours, so most of the time I am on my own. Can you say stress? I am 1 week in and we've had frustrations but no meltdowns. My sweet girl who throws furniture, bites, hits, scratches, and headbutts has not hurt herself or anyone else. What? We went from filling a prescription for a mood stabilizer to having no meltdowns. That's just crazy. It works if you work it, okay? But you have to work it. You have to fill out these worksheets. You have to do this. You have to hold yourself accountable, okay? Another one. These are two more. One from Allison. My daughter has an eye infection and has prescription drops that must be put in several times a day. Have you ever tried to put eye drops in a very strong bucking bronco with 8 flailing arms like an angry octopus? We've all been there, haven't we? We're laughing because it's crazy what we have to go through, right? When it was time for her second dose, I remembered my strategy and I changed the way I approached it. That changed everything. I was able to give her choices to where to do the drops and what position she would be in. Then I got micro commitments from her that allowed her to choose when she was ready. It worked like magic. We are successfully getting the drops in as prescribed without any meltdowns or WWF matches. It's still hard, but very doable. I'm so grateful for all the fantastic things that I'm learning. Right? This lady went from fighting her daughter to getting her to do it because she remembered the cost formula, the strategy, the tactics that she had decided to set up and how she had decided to manage this situation. One more from Maria. This is what, I'm a better wife, mother, and person. I handle things so much better and I'm actually happy, which makes my kids happier. That gets me emotionally, right? I am happy, which makes my kids happier. The things Kyle and his family teach are good for anyone struggling with stress and tension. I've learned actual strategies and created actual strategies for lowering stress, things I can actually do in the moment to help me and my child on the spectrum. It's not just me, guys. It's not just me using this cost formula, getting these results. It's all kinds of families, but you have to pull out that worksheet, fill it out, start using those tactics for yourself, okay? Now let's go back. I want to teach you a new strategy today called, and this is a strategy I created called winning every meltdown. One of the things that was happening in our family, and I'll just go through the cost formula mentally with you right now, as I did, okay? So the challenge was my son was having daily meltdowns, sometimes multiple times a day. It was creating a world where we were walking around on eggshells in our own home, worried about the next meltdown. We had stopped taking him out to eat. We stopped going out to eat as a family. We stopped taking him to the park. Friends that we had in the past had basically stopped inviting us because it was crazy, right? And we would have to leave early, or they knew it was a battle for us. And even though, I'm not sure if they were just scared of the situation or watching us or what happened, but, you start losing friends, you become isolated. And it was so much stress in our home, wondering when the next meltdown was going to happen, afraid of it. My two older sons, typical boys, would disappear. They were trying to get out of the house as often as they could. They didn't want to be there. My wife and I were at odds because we were always trying to manage the stress. It was just a bad situation all the way around. So that was the challenge, okay? My objective long-term was to help him recover from those. I knew that meltdowns were part of who he was at that point, and I didn't really think I could stop them. So I just wanted to help him manage those better, to shorten that cycle and really help him recover quicker and just be at my best when he needed me, right? That was my long-term objective. Now, in the back of my mind, I thought maybe eventually he won't have them anymore. And by the way, very, very rarely does he ever have any meltdowns anymore. From overstimulation, from not get it from bad behavior, he just doesn't. But that wasn't my goal initially, okay? That wasn't my objective. Now, the strategy, I called it, you see here, winning every meltdown, okay? And here are the tactics I came up with, okay? And I'm going to share these with you, okay? And this is an acronym. And what I want you to do is, when you think of this, you see it says APWEC, but I want you to think of it like the duck, because it makes it easier to remember, right? APWEC, I think it's an insurance duck. I can't remember which one, but he says APWEC, AFLAC, that's it. I'm so used to saying APWEC, right? And here's what this stands for. The A, okay, the A in APWEC stands for assume, okay? Assume there will be meltdowns. I'm always surprised when families who have kids on the spectrum are shocked when they have a meltdown. That's just kind of what they do. We need to stop being shocked by it, people. It's what they do sometimes, right? It's what happens, whether it's bad behavior or overstimulation, it happens. Quit being shocked by it. And if you assume they will have meltdowns occasionally, you're not so frightened, you're not so scared, and you can put yourself in a state of love, right? How can I handle this in the spirit of love? Okay, so that's the first step. Assume they will and put yourself in the spirit of love, right? The next one is prepare yourself mentally and physically, okay? Now, preparing yourself physically is standing up tall and strong and saying, I've handled this before, I'll handle it again, right? I've done this hundreds of times. I can do this. And talk to yourself, stand up straight and tall, put yourself in a physical state of power, right? Maybe even tap your chest, whatever it is you do. I don't know. People do different things, right? Pat yourself on the back. I have a sore shoulder, so that hurt. Pat yourself on the back, right? Say, I can do this. Stand up straight and tall, put a smile on your face, and know you're going to be successful. That's preparing yourself mentally and physically, okay? And get yourself ready for it. Assume there will be meltdowns, prepare yourself mentally and physically. The W is you win the encounter. How do you win the encounter? Patience, kindness, and love, okay? PKL, patience, kindness, and love. Now, it may last for 5 minutes or an hour. It doesn't matter. patience, kindness, and love from start to end. That's how you win a meltdown. You don't win a meltdown by making them do what you want or stop. You win by kindness and patience and love, and you can control that every time. Okay, so assume there will be meltdowns. Prepare yourself mentally and physically. Win through kindness and patience and love. The E is endure and energy. Okay, it doesn't matter if it lasts 5 minutes or an hour or 90 minutes or 4 hours. Endure and endure it well. And if you're winning through kindness and patience and love, you will. You won't be exhausted. You won't be overwhelmed. You'll be saying, how can I do this in love? How can I stay in here with kindness and patience and love and win this encounter? Okay. Endure and energy. The energy part is this. I've always found it fascinating. You know, I'm an NBA fan. I like to watch the NBA basketball. And I've always found it interesting. You'll have a team win the NBA title in 7 games, right? We're talking 7 hard-fought, energy-draining games. And if they win, they're exhausted, right? After 7 games, you're naturally exhausted. You're exhausted. If they win, they run up in the stands and they hug their family and they hug everybody and they jump around and then they go out and party all night. And I'm like, wait a minute, aren't they exhausted? Where did all that energy come from? You know what it came from? It came from winning, right? When you win through kindness, patience, and love, you should be energized. You're not going to be exhausted and frustrated and angry. You're going to say, I did what was right for my family. I did what was right for my kids in this moment, and it's going to uplift you, okay? And call on that energy. We all have extra energy. Call on that energy and don't let it ruin your day. And I'll give you some examples here in a second of that. And the C, and this is so important, okay? So assume there will be meltdowns. Prepare yourself mentally and physically. Win through kindness and patience and love. Have energy and endure. And the C is for celebrate. Okay, too many of us do too many things perfectly right. We don't take the time to celebrate ourselves, okay? When my son has a meltdown and I assume, prepare, win, endure, and energy, when I walk out of his room and he's out of sight, I give it yes, 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 right? Yes, yes, I'm the greatest dad in the world. Now, I got goosebumps because that's how I feel. And that's how you should feel. Celebrate yourself. Too many of us, when we do the right things, when we make good decisions, we don't celebrate ourselves. We think, well, that's just standard stuff. No, you need that celebration to lift you, to give you energy, and for you to feel like you're winning this battle, okay? And it's a battle, okay? So APWEC, say it with me, APWEC. I can't hear you, I don't care. APWEC, okay? Assume there will be meltdowns, prepare yourself mentally and physically, win through kindness and patience and love, have energy and endure, okay? And then celebrate. That is the strategy for winning every meltdown. Now, here's what's kind of cool about it. Let me see here if I can. Okay, winning every meltdown. Let me tell you how this changed our life. So when I first started doing this, I came up with this strategy without my wife's help. Okay, as a matter of fact, my wife was unhappy with me when we first started this journey. We were at odds. My relationship with her was not good, and that's what stress can create in your world. Okay. You want to blame things on each other. You want somebody to blame, so you end up blaming it on that person who's closest to you, right? And we were doing that. And so she had kind of lost faith in me as a good father and a good husband. And I get it. I'm not mad about it. I just wasn't managing it very well. So I came up with this strategy. And I'll never forget, we had decided to try going to the park, okay? This was an ordeal for us, and we had prepped Eric, and we had prepped all our kids. But we were determined not to let this ruin our world, right? So at about 10:30 in the morning, we're kind of getting things ready, and we're going to go over to the park at 11. And a scream comes from Eric's room, and he's melting down over something. So I told my wife, I got this. And I ran upstairs, and guess what I did? I APWEC'd him. Okay. I assumed there would be a meltdowns, prepared myself mentally and physically, won through kindness and patience and love, endured and had energy, and I celebrated. And when I came downstairs, I said, all right, he's good, let's go. And my wife said, wait a minute, this isn't healthy. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, you got to be frustrated. And I said, I'm not, I'm ready to go, I'm good. And she said, what did you do? Right? What did you do? And I said, I APWEC'd him. And she said, you what? I said, I APWEC'd him. She said, what is that? And for the next few minutes, I told her. And she said, oh, so you're not angry? I said, no, I'm not angry. I'm not suppressing my anger or frustration. I APWEC'd him. I got him back. We're ready to go. He's not going to ruin the rest of the day for us. Okay. So we go over to the park, and as often happens, he went over to the swings and they were all full, and he melted down. And I saw it and I ran over there. And you know what I did? I APWEC'd him. Okay. I assumed there would be a meltdown. I prepared myself mentally and physically, put myself in a state of love. I won through kindness and patience and love. I showed endurance. I endured to the end, and I had energy. And when I was done, I looked over and my wife was talking to some women pointing at us. Right? And I walked over, and as I'm celebrating my success, because he's settled back down, and he hopped on a swing finally came open. And I said, and she said, tell him about it. And I said, tell him about what? She said, how you APWEC'd him. I said, what? And she said, yeah, we were watching you. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. And it gave us a chance to do what we call some positive autism awareness, right? And talk about solutions to some of these things. And I got a chance to talk to 4 or 5 moms. Interestingly enough, some of those moms, all those moms, didn't have kids on the spectrum, but said, we're going to use that on our typical kids when they have bad behaviors or anger or, get crazy. We're going to APWEC them. I'm like, perfect, right? And what a great thing that was, right? And so now we finished our day at the park. We're happy. He had a great time. All my family had a great time. And we came home, and a couple of days later, I was leaving for work one morning, and my wife said, you know what I'm going to do today? I said, what's that? She said, I got tickets to the movies. I'm going to take all the kids to the movies. And I said, what? That's risky. You guys know, right? Flashing lights, loud noise, that can tip a kid who's on the spectrum. That can overstimulate them bad. I said, okay, are you sure? And she's like, I'm doing it. I said, all right, let me know how it goes, right? So as I remember I was waiting for a call from her at work all day long, and I never got one. And I thought it's either going horribly wrong or horribly well, or maybe who knows, right? So when I got home, my wife met me in the door. She had a big giant grin on her face. And I said, it went well. And she said, well, I said, what do you mean well? And she said, well, he melted down. I said, what are you talking? Why are you smiling? She said, because I pulled him out. I had my kids all the rest of the kids together, and I pulled him out and I APWEC'd him. I said, you what? She said, yeah, assumed there would be a meltdown, prepared myself mentally and physically, and put myself in a state of love, went through kindness and patience and love, right? I had energy and I endured. And then when I got him back in the theater to watch the rest of the movie, I celebrated. And I said, oh my gosh, this crap is working, right? And it was one of the first times I got buy-in from her, because it was a strategy she could use, because it was very specific steps. When your kids have meltdowns, if you follow these steps, don't be surprised by this meltdown. Assume there will be meltdowns occasionally, okay? And don't get frustrated or angry or discouraged and say, why me, why now? That doesn't help. What does help is assuming there will be meltdowns, prepare yourself mentally, physically, okay? Win through kindness and patience and love, especially love, okay? Put yourself in a state of love, endure and have energy, and celebrate the crap out of your success. That is how you win every meltdown. And if you'll start doing that today, you'll be shocked at how it changes. Here's how it changed our family. We started getting invited places again. We would go out to dinner again, because if he melted down, we assumed he would. We APWEC'd him, right? We would go places. I would catch my sons, my typical boys, APWEC'ing him. They knew. My other kids started using these strategies, right? This is how powerful having a plan can be, right? And what happens is your kids, when they go into fight or flight or meltdowns and you get calm and loving, it starts to change them, right? They start to see how adults should act in those heightened situations. Sometimes we fall apart, and they're watching. Don't think just because they're having a meltdown, they're not watching how we react to them, okay? And a lot of times we react in ways that make it worse, that escalate them more, that cause more problems. We want to argue or be frustrated or angry. None of that helps long-term. What does help is modeling the kind of behavior you want from them when things get escalated. And this will help you do that. So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully I described that. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about this in the Q&A when we're done. So here's the key. When we change our patterns, they change their patterns, okay? They'll start to model our behavior. When they freak out, when they have meltdowns, when they get overstimulated, and we get calm and loving they see that and they think, that's what adults do when things get crazy. They get calm and loving, right? They express love to me in a more heightened state. So powerful. I wish I could describe to you the changes that I've seen in my family when you do things in a spirit of love, even when it's hard, even when they're screaming at you. My son was spit screaming at me the other day. It happens. He was screaming at me so loud a spittle was going in my face. And if you haven't gone through my Facebook page, go and read some of those articles. You'll see the things he's done and how I handle it and how it changes them. When we change our patterns, they change their patterns. And it lowers our stress. We don't get stressed because when they get escalated, we go into a calm state. We don't get stressed and we lower their stress a lot quicker. Okay. Now nobody's afraid of meltdowns anymore in my family. When they happen, we APWEC them. And that's what I want you to do too. Okay. All my kids know how to APWEC my son. They know what's going on. My typical kids are better at it than me sometimes, right? They're ready. They know what to do. And here's the key here. Almost all strategies work when we do them in a spirit of love. Okay. Almost no strategies work when they're not done in a spirit of love. Okay. This is one of the mistakes a lot of parents make. They'll try these strategies and they won't do them in a spirit of love. They'll just try tactics, hardline tactics. And they don't work because kids don't respond to discipline. They respond to discipline in a spirit of love. And we're calm. And we're the parent. We're calm, cool, and collected. And they see that. And they rely on us to help them. We shouldn't join their storm. We should calm their storm, help them to calm the storm, right? And then they can join us outside of that storm. And they start to learn these things. My son, I think one of the reasons Eric knows how to regulate himself is because he's watched me for years. And my wife too. My wife did it for years prior to her passing, okay? Almost all strategies work when done in a spirit of love. By the way, this is part of the homework, so you want to write this down, okay? Here's the key. Kids are like velociraptors, okay? This is something my wife taught me a few years back. We would try a strategy and Eric would try a new route. Like for a while, he was biting and hitting, and he moved away from that, so he started screaming. And he moved away from that, and then he started trying to hit me. We got him away from that, and then he threatened to kill himself. Now, this is a child that can't hardly even speak, but he knew how to say that. He kept ramping it up because he was trying to get his way. He was trying to be in control of the situation. And I'll never forget one time, Shelly walked up to me and she said, "Kids are like velociraptors." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, if you remember the movie Jurassic Park, the velociraptors were really smart and they locked him in this cage with wire around the top and it was electrified. And they said consistently, the velociraptors were systematically testing the fences in every different area to find a weakness. If they found a weakness, they would exploit it. So they were every day, every minute, they were going to test the fences. And if there was ever a weakness, they were going to get it escape. Well, in the movie, eventually they have to shut down the power. The electricity goes out for, I want to say 90 seconds. And the velociraptors are out and they start killing everything. Okay. Now, what I'm not saying is our kids are killing everything. And I'm not saying they're animals. What I am saying is they do what works. They're going to test what works. We talked about this in our Q&A. They're going to see what works and they're going to do it. Now, if you take away something that works, if your child screams at you and it stops working and they stop getting what they want, they might start spitting at you. They're going to ramp it. They're going to naturally move up this ladder. So don't be alarmed when your kids go from aggressive towards you to trying to swing at you. Okay. You can still manage that in a spirit of love. And if you don't believe it, go through my Facebook page. I talk about it. When my son hit me one time, he caught me pretty good and made my ear bleed. And my reaction to that changed our relationship dramatically. Okay. And it still works today. So kids are like velociraptors. The reason your kids are doing what they're doing is because it works. They're getting what they want. You have to find out what it is they want, what they're after, what they're trying to do, and give them a way to do that that's not aggressive or angry or overwhelmed or meltdowns, right? And they're not going to get everything they want. They need to know that too. Our kids need discipline, but you can discipline in a spirit of love, right? APWEC is disciplining in a spirit of love, okay? And you can discipline in a spirit of love. This cost worksheet, one of the first the first tactic every time should be do this in a spirit of love. Okay. And that's one of the 3 pillars. Okay. That's one of the 3 pillars. And I want you to understand that. Number one, let me go back. The first pillar, I'm going to do what's right for my son, do what's best for my son long-term, even if it's hard. That means you can't give up. I'm going to do what's best for my kids on the spectrum, even if it's hard, long-term, not short-term. Giving in short-term, not going to be what's best for them long-term. Number 2, I'm going to do what's best for my family long-term, even if it's hard. Sometimes those clash and you have to figure that out. Okay. But if you know that pillar, you're in good shape. And number 3, I'm going to do this in a spirit of love, especially when it's really hard. And we're going to talk about how to do that tomorrow. I'm going to give you a strategy tomorrow that's going to allow you to snap into a state of kindness and love and patience, especially when it gets super hard. When they're at their worst, you're going to be at your best. And it's the most powerful feeling ever. I've had people come to me and say, holy crap, how'd you do that? I'm like, tactics. I have a strategy. I follow my tactics. You're so patient. No, I'm not patient. I have tactics. I have a strategy and tactics I follow. I've internalized this stuff. Sometimes people say, how can you remember all this stuff? I've internalized it. It's part of who I am. Right. And that's what you need to do too. That's why you need to write these worksheets up. Don't be sitting here and thinking when you're done here, you're like, oh, that was great. Now what do I do? No, grab that worksheet, write out the challenge like Andrea did. Write down the reasons why you want to get this done. Write out the long-term objective. And it can't be to fix my kid. It has to be, how do I manage this? What do I want from me? Or how do I want these things to work for me so that I can get the long-term result I want, right? Write out the tactics. What are the steps I'm going to take? The first one needs to be do this in a spirit of love. And then steps you're going to take every time this event happens, this challenge. And then name it. Okay. And name it as silly as you can. Andrea named one yesterday that was so silly. I'm not going to share it because it's private she emailed it to me, I'm sure, because she didn't want everybody to see it. But the idea that she wrote it out and got it and she's ready, she's going to use this is fantastic. And I want you to use APWEC. Okay. Write it down. If you're not taking notes, take notes. Assume there will be meltdowns. Prepare yourself mentally and physically. Put yourself in a spirit and state of love. Win through kindness and patience and love. Endure and have energy. Call on that extra energy. You'll have energy if you do it in love. And win. And celebrate. APWEC. C is celebrate. Celebrate your success. Celebrate your being the greatest parent you can be for that child on the spectrum. And for your typical kids. And for your spouse. You can do it with everybody. I used to do this with Shelly all the time. She'd say, do you have a strategy for me? And I'd say, yep. Can I see it? Yep, you can. Right? We would share these things. It's really how it can bind you together, especially when 2 parents are doing the same things together with their child. The child gets consistency and they see what's happening, and both parents are calm and loving. It's an amazing thing to watch. And it made Shelly and I come so close together. We became a top 1% happy marriage. Not in spite of autism, but because of autism, because of these challenges. Okay. Now I want to give you a quick testimonial. This is a single mom. Her son was arguing and defiant and wouldn't do anything around the house. Okay. We created a quick strategy together. And this is what she said. I actually got him to clean the yard and the garage without arguing or negotiating by using your techniques. Thank you so much for all the help you have given our family. I love this. I love it so much, right? She had a plan. We talked about this in the Q&A yesterday, a little bit on contracts, okay? I won't go into detail, but those of you that are on Q&A, remember, this is what she did, okay? She wrote it up, had him sign it, and she also knew he was going to try to manipulate the contract, so she built that in to the contract details so that he couldn't, right? So what to do today? All right, guys, here's your homework. Again, if you're doing homework, you're helping me, because it helps me design tomorrow's presentation. I've got the outline, but I want to know what you need, okay? So to do your homework, here's my Kyle Jetzel page. I'm going to go to Parenting at Home Autism Challenges in the Spirit of Love. This is our group that you're in. Click on Guides, and now go to day 3. One good decision can change everything. All right. And again, I am reposting these replays. Have your spouses watch them. Have your typical kids watch them. Have everybody watch them. Let's get on the same page. Let's do this together. Day 3, and I'll post the replay of the video here. Answer these questions. Will you implement the strategy you learned today? APWEC. Okay. The next time your child has a meltdown, whether it's because it's bad behavior or it's overstimulation, APWEC them. Assume there will be meltdowns. Prepare win, endure in energy, and celebrate. Okay. And what's the best thing about this event so far? I want to hear it. Okay. And if you click on that worksheet, I've asked a couple of questions, but I do want to, one of the things that'll help me a lot, if you don't mind, is best thing so far about this event is let me know that. Also, what do you still want to know and why? Okay. What do you still want to know? Why this will work for me and what's holding me back. Okay. Best thing so far about this event. What do you still want to know? Why this, I want you to write out why this will work for you. Okay. That's a part of belief, and do it. And what's holding you back? Why are you hesitant? Does it sound like too much work? Let me know, because it's going to help me prepare for tomorrow. Okay. So that's what you need to do today. And again, if you'll do that, there are rewards. Laugh with Me ebook, lessons learned ebook, energy hacks video and worksheet, Autism Dad's training video at 17 ebook, and plus new a few years ago, well, many, many, many years ago, probably in the first 10 years of our marriage, my wife created what she called a 90-day self-care workbook. When you got no money and you got no time. Because at the time we had no money and we were spending every penny we had on our son and trying to figure this out. And she couldn't, our kids would not let us go anywhere. We couldn't leave my son's side for more than 10 minutes without it being the end of the world. And so we couldn't go anywhere, especially her. She used to nurture him, and she had a relationship like I've never seen, but she couldn't. I remember one time I came home from work and she showed me a picture she had taken of, she had gone to the restroom and shut the door, and my sons were at the door banging on it. My two sons on the spectrum, because she had locked it, wouldn't let them in, and they were screaming and yelling. And they started rolling things under the door. And she showed me a picture of all the things they had rolled into the door, Hot Wheels and some cereal, right? She could not give away. So I'm going to give that away as well. And you know what? I'll give that away on Friday. For those of you that show up on Friday, I'm going to put a link to that. You'll be able to download it immediately if that's something you need, okay? Plus, free coaching session with Kyle. What to do today? Let me go back and show you again what to do today, okay? I'm going to go back to my page, home. There's my Kyle Jetzel page. There I am, okay? And we're going to go to the group, go to the guides. I'm going to walk through this, go down to day 3. One good decision can change everything. Okay. And do the homework. Again, thank you so much for doing the homework. The more detail you can give me, the better I'm going to be at helping you out. And that's ultimately what I want. Okay. So tomorrow, this is a strategy, and I have an actual wristband on here. I'll explain that to you tomorrow. All my kids have this, and it is the strategy I'm going to share with you tomorrow. It's how to be at your best when they're at their worst, when the world is falling apart around you, when everything seems to be against you, when you're exhausted, overwhelmed, discouraged, tired, when you can't do it anymore, when you think if this is my new life, it stinks and it's no fun, and all those things, right? This is going to help you to be at your very best. It's going to help you to snap into a state of productive state, and it's going to teach you how to be at your very best when they're at their worst. And that's when they need us the most, right? When they're at their worst is when they need us to be at our best. That's when they need us the most. But all too often, it's when we struggle. I know I did. My wife did. Until we came up with this strategy that I'm going to teach you tomorrow. So be here tomorrow. And it's the part of Alex Honnold's Don't Freak Out. Okay. Remember Alex Honnold's plan? Get trained. That's the cost formula, the cost framework. Make one good decision. That's internalizing it. And don't freak out. That's tomorrow. We're going to cover that. Okay. How to be at your best when they're at their worst. All right. Q&A. All right. So I'm going to unshare my screen. And those of you that are on Facebook, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to go to Q&A now. So all you guys on Facebook, I will see you tomorrow on Thursday. Let's see. Stop live stream. All right. It's just us now. So I'm going to open up the chat too so that I can see that. And please, if you don't mind, maybe you can share your screen with me if you'd like, so I can see who you are. And I'll watch to see when you unmute. It looks like you guys can go ahead and unmute if you want. And who might have a question about what we talked about today? Anybody? And speak up. This is informal. It's not nothing to be afraid of. I don't bite. Well, I kind of bit a little bit yesterday, didn't I? I realized after after we had chatted, I kind of went off a little, I kind of got on a soapbox and went off a little bit on something. And I kind of felt like maybe it didn't come across in a spirit of love. And so first of all, I want to apologize. And and what I want to say is, please don't mistake my intensity for anger, because it's not. I think I get intense because I know how powerful it is when your kids feel loved. I know what it feels like to struggle, and I know what it feels like to have a happy, loving family that you're just, it's the world, right? And so I think my intensity comes from a place of, I want for you what I have in my family. And so when I hear people cover things, sometimes I think I get a little animated. Please forgive me if it comes across as any other way than it is in a spirit of love. I'm just trying to be helpful, and sometimes I get a little jumpy about it. So it looks like, Jill, it looks like you have you're off mute. Would you like to ask a question, Jill? Oh, I
Hi,
see.
yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I had an appointment, so I didn't get on until about 3:30. So I'm just kind of hanging out to see what people say, and then I'm going to watch the replay
Okay.
because I missed the whole APWEC. Is that what it's called? APWEC?
APWEC, APWEC. Yeah, go back and watch the replay. You're going to want to catch that
Yeah.
because it's powerful. Yeah. Where can we see your book? How did they know to contact you? Oh, are we talking about people that I work with? Typically, it's through these kind of presentations or on my Facebook page. That's how people usually contact me. It builds trust. Any other questions, Jill? Any other questions? Or
How did they know how to contact you? Was you told a story yesterday about your son going out on day one of the class, and you got a phone call from the police?
yeah,
And
so
I was just wondering how they knew to contact you.
yeah, so my son has a phone, but it is not active, which means he can open it up and he can take pictures. I like for him to give, when he goes places, we have this little deal where if he takes pictures of where he's been, then he comes back and shows me, and it's a way we can connect, because he's not a big fan of mine. And if he does that, he gets a scoop of ice cream. So I'm bribing him to share with me, because if he comes home and I say, hey, where'd you go? What'd you do? Nothing, right?
Right.
That's what he says. But if I say, hey, show me pictures of what you did and where you went, he'll sit down, he'll show me pictures. And then I can say, perfect, let's get some ice cream together. And it connects us, right? So this is my bribery. I believe in using whatever method necessary to connect with my son, because he doesn't like me too much, because I'm the voice of reason and the discipline in his life that he needs to be functional, right? So in his phone, he knows how to take pictures. He also knows how to find my phone number. So if anything goes wrong, he will walk up to an individual and he'll almost, he's not very verbal, but he'll say, can you help me? And people love to help him. People will help. You have no idea. And he'll say, this is my dad. Can you call him? And people, I've gotten calls from people that are down by the river that see him struggling, to the police officer, to Blaze Pizza over here by our house. I've gotten calls from people who say, hey, I've got Eric here and he's struggling a little bit. And I say, tell me what's going on. I get a chance to share with him his situation. They're always so kind. They always help him. If I need to go get him, I can. I don't really normally have to. He'll get a little aggravated and escalated, and people are concerned. And so if they start looking at him, he'll ask for help. And we've worked on him doing that, right? So awesome. The good thing about the police officer is he took a selfie with him. Hey, Eric. Hey, come here. Can you show me your selfie with the police guy? Can I show it to them?
I deleted it.
Oh, you deleted it. Okay.
Oh.
He deleted it. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't fun, huh? You got to be the kind police officer, right?
I'll be trying.
You'll be kind. Okay. So that's Eric. You saw him again. You saw him on Monday as well. So yeah. Oh, there he is.
Hey.
Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Perfect. You can show me later, okay?
All right.
I'm going to talk to everybody for just a few minutes.
All right.
All right. So yeah, so that's how they knew. I don't have a tracker on his phone, which I've considered it, not considered it. I don't want to be a limiting factor, right? I want him to have freedom. I want him to, I just have to have faith, you know. Somebody told me one time, sometimes you have to let go and let God, right? And so I've done everything I think I can. I've tried to prep him as much as I can. Now I kind of have to let the chips fall where they may in some cases. But so far, it's been a couple of years now that he's doing this, and it's been good. He has a lot of freedom. He gets to do a lot of stuff. So that's a good question. Thanks, Jill. Any other questions you guys have?
Hey, so I know I'm taking a bit of a backward step here, but obviously yesterday we went over the cost formula. Can that work in like any area of life? Like if I had like stresses at work or like in other areas of life, or does it only work in challenges with autism?
Absolutely not. It works in every situation. One of my clients has a difficult boss. So we got on the call one day and she said, here's my challenge. This lady's driving me crazy, right? And so we pulled that out and we talked through, we realize you can't change other people, right? What you can do is change the way you work with people and deal with people. And this is her boss, right? So she can't be belligerent. She has to be respectful. So we kind of walk through, the answer to your question is, we created tactics for her that repaired the relationship. And actually within a couple of weeks, she said her and her boss are getting along great now. She knows where her boss stands. She understands a lot of what her boss's issues weren't with her, right? And so now that she's giving her boss some grace, this is crazy, right? But I said, it doesn't sound like she's mad at you. It just sounds like she's mad at the world, right? And as we talked about it, it became very clear to her that she needed to give this lady a little grace and be compassionate. And as she did that, she really started seeing a different side of her boss, and they've started to repair the relationship. So the answer is yes. Not only can it work it's really the best thing is relationships, right? But my wife has used it for IEPs. I remember one time my wife asked me, can you go to an IEP with me? Right. And I had always heard IEPs can be tough, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought my job was to go in there and look mean. I said, okay, tell me what you need from me. You want me to look mad? She's like, no, you look happy. You smile a lot. You don't say anything. I said, well, if somebody says something wrong, you want me to stand up and tell them what's for? No, you are to be on your best behavior and kind. And I said, what am I there for then? I'm the man. I'm supposed to. She said, you're there to take notes. I don't take very good notes, and I need you to take notes, but you don't say a word. So when we got there, my wife walked in and she had created a cost formula for this, right? She walked in and everybody came in, and the first thing she said is, she said, you know what? I want to start by just letting you know, I know Eric can be difficult. And I want you to know how much I appreciate that you take him on for this amount of time and work with him to teach him. And he feels your love. And it matters to me as a parent. And I want to thank each one of you individually for the kindness you've shown him and us as a family. Right. And there was not a dry eye in that room. Right. And let me tell you something. They did everything they could. They went overboard for my son's services. Okay. These people in these IEPs, they got a lot of kids. They got a lot of limitations. There's a lot going on. And she kind of put herself in their position and said, I don't do this by choice. He's my son. I don't think I would do this by choice. That crap is hard, right? How wonderful it is that these people sacrifice for our kids. And she let them feel that. And let me tell you, those people love my son more than any other kid in there because of the way she treated them, right? And they would call her and tell her, they were almost sad to call her and say they had difficulties, right? And they would call her and say, hey, you had a great day. She created relationships with them that were so powerful. And initially I thought of it as manipulation, but it was from her heart. And she called it engineering, is what she called it, right?
I think when it comes from the heart, when it comes to that, like from that spirit of love, I don't think it can be manipulation, because if you truly mean it with all your heart, then it's not manipulation. It's just stating a fact.
It's not at all. And she did feel that from the heart. Now, our job is to feel from the heart when we approach these individuals who are difficult or challenging. And that's the challenge. It's all about us feeling from the heart, right? Giving people grace, understanding their position, working with them where they're at, and letting them know we love them and we care, and they're going to get our very best. And we're not there to damage them. We're there to help and be kind. And it was so powerful. So yeah, the answer is absolutely. I use it. Anytime I get frustrated, I pull out a cost worksheet. It could be because I got stuck in traffic, right? And I don't want to be frustrated getting stuck in traffic. It doesn't matter, right? What matters is I don't want to be frustrated. I don't want to be angry. I want to be kind and patient and loving in all aspects of my life. And this will help us do that. So great question, Andrea. Anything else you guys have? All right, we're right up against the time. So thank you so much for joining me again. Tomorrow, we're going to cover how to be at your best when they're at their worst. So, you know, those times when everything explodes and you lose your patience and you just can't be kind anymore or can't be patient. Tomorrow's the day we're going to solve that. Okay. We're going to teach you a strategy that's going to help you with that. So thanks again for coming, everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow and have a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.